Hello everyone, my name is Tom, and in today's video I'm going to teach you everything you need to know about setting up your L3 Antminer machines by Bitmain. I'm going to talk about the pool settings, overclocking your miner, different firmware, how to flash your miner using an SD card, where to find your wallet address or how to get one to send your Litecoin to. And yeah, this video is not L3 specific or L3 plus specific or even L3 plus plus. It makes no difference. And with that said, let's jump right into it. So you've got your miner, whether you bought it new or from somebody else. You've plugged it in, connected it to the internet, and unless something's wrong with it, it should look something like this. The first step, what you're going to do is you have to find out your miner's IP address. And there's multiple ways to do this, but in my opinion, the easiest way is to go to bitmain.com, and you're going to want to go to customer support. Down here, firmware download. You're going to click on firmware. Down here, you're going to click on other and IP reporter. And you're going to want to download this. And once you open it, it's going to look like this. So now you're going to press start. And on your miner, next to the Ethernet port, there's one black little button called the IP report button. And once you press that, it's going to look something like this. It's going to open another window with your miner's IP address right here. So what you're going to do now is type this IP address into your browser. All right, press enter. So if you've bought this miner new, or if it's on factory settings, the username and password should both be root, just like this. So you're going to type in root. If not, I'm going to show you how to reset it right now. You're going to take a little pin and put it into the hole next to the two little LEDs and hold it there for about 4 to 5 seconds, and both the green and red LEDs are going to light up. Once that happens, the miner's reset, and therefore the passwords are also going to be reset back to their factory ones, which are root. So I'm going to press sign in or enter. And if your miner has the Bitmain Antminer factory firmware on it, it's going to look like this. If your miner, for some reason, does not have the default Bitmain firmware on it already, because you bought a used miner and the previous owner was using a different firmware, you're going to want to go back to this page, back to the bitmain.com/support/download page, and then you want to go to Litecoin miners and Antminer L3++. By the way, there's not actually a difference between the L3 Plus, and L3++. If anyone tells you there's a difference, that's a lie. It's purely firmware. You can download this firmware. You can download the L3++ firmware on any L3 machine, and you can also download this Blizz firmware on any L3 machine. There's absolutely no difference except the fact that the sticker says L3 Plus or L3++ on it. So yeah, this is where you get the Bitmain factory firmware. You're gonna have to put this firmware on a bootable SD card though. This is a bit of a different process, but I'm gonna make a separate video about that. So what you're gonna do next, you got all your settings here, your pool settings, advanced settings where you can change frequencies. We're gonna get into that later. And then you can see how your miner is doing. You got 4 boards. The L3 miner has 4 boards. I can see the hash rate of each board, the temperatures. I can see that both my fans are running. Fan number 1 being the front fan number 2 being the rear fan. If one of these would be 0, then I suggest you change your fan, because that means that the fan is obviously not working and they have to work. Your miner might start turning off or overheating, or it might just start blinking red, showing all kinds of errors, etc. The first thing I suggest you do is, once you're inside the miner, you click on System, Administration, and you change your password, especially if your network is not secure or if other people are using your network. It's always good. Just change your password, because in case you get a virus or something, the viruses know. If you buy a miner that has a virus, the viruses know the factory passwords. So what then happens is, if you add a miner with a virus to a network of other miners, of your miners at home, and they all have the factory password, that virus through the network is going to spread onto all your other miners. So this is very important. It doesn't cost much time, but definitely change the password here. I'm going to show you how to install the Bliss firmware, because that firmware is a lot better than the Antminer firmware, or the default factory firmware. For this step, you're going to need an SD card, a micro SD card to be exact, one that ideally does not have more than 16 gigabytes of storage, because you need this micro SD card to be the FAT32 format, and most of the SD cards that are bigger than 16 gigabytes do not have or do not support this format. If you do not want to upgrade your firmware, you can skip this step. The miner works perfectly fine with the factory default Antminer firmware. But the Bliss firmware, which I am about to show you, does consume less electricity and actually makes more money. So that is just a recommendation. Once you have your SD card, which you reformatted or formatted to the FAT32 format, you're going to want to put these files in, which I will leave a link in the description where you can download a folder with these files. You'll put these files on the SD card, and yep, that is it. So the way you're going to put this firmware on your miner is you're going to pull out the controller. You're going to pull out the controller at the top, unplug one of the boards, because one of the board cables actually prevents you from accessing that SD port. Once you've done that, you're going to put the SD card in. Make sure your miner is not connected via the Ethernet cable. Unplug the Ethernet cable. It does not need internet for this. It does not need to be connected to the network. Once your SD card is in, you start up the miner, and you're going to have to wait for about a minute or two. What's going to happen is, eventually, both the LEDs are gonna light up. The green and the red will light up, stay lit for, I don't know, 5 to 10 seconds or something. Might take a little longer. And then eventually they will turn off and start flashing. Once they start flashing, you know that the miner or the controller has accepted the SD card, has accepted the information on the SD card, and you can unplug the miner again. You can turn it off. Once you've done that, don't forget to take out your SD card again out of the controller, because I've done that multiple times. And if you leave the SD card in, your miner's not going to work. So make sure once you're done, you unplug the miner, take the SD card out, plug all the boards back in, put the controller back, plug your Ethernet cable in, and fire it up. So if you've done everything right, your miner has accepted the SD card, and there were no other issues, you should now have something like this. You've downloaded the Bliss firmware on your L3 machine. The first thing, as I've mentioned before, please change your password. Very important. You don't want anyone or any viruses accessing this miner. I've suffered because of this in the past, so I'm speaking out of own experience. Now we get to the fun part. Now we get to the part where we make your miner actually mine for you, make you money. And that's the pool settings. So what you're going to do is go to litecoinpool.org, and you're going to create an account here. I already have an account, so I'm just going to log in. Once you create an account and you've successfully logged in, you're going to come to this page. I have dark mode enabled, so if you're wondering, in case you're wondering why your website looks different, it's because of this setting here. All right, so right here you have add worker, your username, and add workers. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a worker called password 1. Don't worry, this password is absolutely irrelevant. So it can literally be 1, 1, 2, 3, whatever you want. All right, and then we're going to click add worker. So now we have created a worker right here. Then you are going to go to help. And depending on your location, you are going to copy whichever link you are closest to. If you're in Europe, you're going to want this link, and that is the one I will be using since I am in Europe. Then you'll go back to your miner, and first you're gonna erase everything that's in there, whoever has put that in, and paste that link in here. Then your worker ID is your username. Your username dot the worker's name, whatever you named him. And then the password, whichever you picked. So in my case, it's just 11. Here you want to set it to auto default, manual fan mode 100, which is also actually relevant because this should never even apply because we've set it to auto, as you can see. All right, save and apply. And now you should hear your miner turn down as it's kind of rebooting and restarting to the new pool address. What I like to do is have a backup pool. So what I do is I make one worker, which I use purely for backup. So random high number, add worker, and this is going to be my backup. So what I then do is I go to help, and I pick a link that's not the same one as my main location, and I use that one as my pool number 2. So that means if anything is wrong with my main pool, if they're restarting the server or whatever's going on, if anything's going on, if anything were to happen with this pool temporarily, instead of the miner just not mining, it's just going to temporarily switch to my pool 2 until pool number 1 is up and running again. So I definitely recommend this. Having this on. In the end, I think it's pennies in the end, but why not? Why not? If you have the time, put in an extra pool. You can also put in a different pool if you want, but I just have the 2 different locations on the same pool. Once you give your miner a minute or 2, it should be alive. Our miner is already up and running, up to speed. It took about 3 minutes, and if your miner is healthy and has no issues, all 4 boards are running, you should be hitting 500 or above. The hash rate of 500 or above, you know your miner is healthy, and that's good. So now, what do all these numbers mean? Here you can see how long the miner has been running for since its last reboot or shutdown or restart. Then here's the current hash rate, your average hash rate, which is the important one. Your pools. If there's anything wrong with the pool, it will not say alive here. And probably the most important thing that you really have to look out for is this number right here. This is the number of errors in percentage. So you don't want this number ever to be above 1%. You want to keep this under 1%. And why this is important is because we now want to start overclocking your miner for it to have a higher hash rate. So but what then happens eventually when your boards reach the limit, they will start throwing out these errors. So, and eventually if the miner is struggling too much, if the number of errors is too much, it's actually counterproductive because you end up making less money. So as you can see, right now I'm on default settings. This is very conservative. We have a massive margin. We're 0.02% of errors. Yeah, two little hiccups right here on board number 2, which is nothing. That's completely fine. So since I can now see that my miner is perfectly healthy, we can go here to advanced settings. You want to keep this on lowest. Automatic reboot on low hash rate, I would definitely turn on. This one is quite important. If there's anything wrong with your miner, for some reason there's an ASIC failure or something like that, and the hash rate starts to drop, it will automatically reboot your miner. Even if you're on holidays, whatever, there's some kind of problem, it will reboot, which is really nice. Then for now, I'm going to set all these to global. And what we're going to do is, let's just go 400 and save and apply. You're going to wait a second. The miner is going to reboot. All right, so I have now overclocked this miner. All boards to frequency 400. And as you can see, the hash rate is immediately significantly higher than it was before. So that means we're making more money. And still, almost no errors, which means that we still have a lot of room to overclock this miner even more. So what I'm now going to do is I'm going to play with the settings until I find what I think are the optimal settings for this particular miner. And yeah, I'm gonna show you. After playing with the settings a little bit, playing with the frequencies for a while, I have let these settings run for, as you can see, 12 minutes now. Let's refresh that again. 13 minutes. And yep, I'm still less than half a percent of mistakes, of errors. So as you can see, in terms of watts, power consumption, the Bliss firmware consumes a lot less power than the factory firmware, which is great. And look at the hash rate. We are at 560 hash rate at the moment. I believe this average is going to go up in a while after it stays here, stabilizes a bit. As you can see, I'm also running a different frequency on each board. That means that this board, for example, wasn't as strong. You can see it still has 81 errors, more than any other one, and it actually has the lowest frequency. So you might have to change the settings individually here. So now I'm at global 431, but then you see board number 3 and board number 4, I went lower or higher because I thought, oh, this board can take more. This board was not as strong. So yeah, you can really play around with this. I think I'm still quite conservative. Like I said, I don't think you need to worry about this as long as you are below 1%. So now we're gonna go back to the pool because you have to send your money somewhere, right? All right. So let me show you what else we've got here. You got your time zone settings, reference currency. I like to have my currency always set to dollars because that's just the universal currency I use in crypto always. To Two-factor login if you want to. Definitely never hurts. Never hurts. But to be fair, all that anyone could ever steal from your pool account is what's on your pool. The money never stays. Well, what you've mined over the last 12 or 24 hours, because the money never stays on your pool for longer than 24 hours, because the pool, the money is collected to your account on your pool, and then the pool sends it to you and pays you out. Depending on the pool, sometimes it's every 12 hours, sometimes it's once a day, and sometimes you can even individually change it. Like here, for example. Here, first of all, you've got your payment address. This is your wallet address. I'm going to show you where to find that wallet address in a minute. But then, look at this. You have the auto payout threshold. So the default is the minimum, which is 0.01 Litecoin. Anyway, here you can set out your payout interval depending on how much money you make. As long as you make this amount within this time, you'll be paid out every 12 hours, for example. But I can set this to every half an hour or maximum every 24 hours. If you want your payment to come once a day, that's totally fine. You just change this to 24 hours. Yep. Once you're done with this, you click Save Settings. Also, I do recommend having your IP binding on, which means that only one device or one IP address can be logged into your account at the same time. So I'm a Crypto.com fan, and that's why I'm going to show you how to set this up with Crypto.com. I primarily use the mobile version of Crypto.com, but for demonstration purposes, I'm going to use Crypto.com Exchange, which is the only version that's available on desktop. So once you log in, you're going to come to this page, your dashboard. And what you have to do is go to your wallets, and then in here, you need to find Litecoin, LTC, right here. If you cannot find it for some reason by scrolling up and down, you can type it in here. Oh, that doesn't work. We have to type LTC. And then you're going to click Deposit. So once it shows you the screen, you're going to have to wait a few minutes because they have to actually assign you an address. After waiting a few seconds or a few minutes, you'll be presented with your own Litecoin wallet address, which you can conveniently just copy here. Go back to your account and paste that into here. Once that is all set up, you click Save Settings. Your miner is running. Oh, is it running? Yep. Your miners are running, which you can also see in here. That is how you set up your L3 machine. I do recommend after you're done setting up your settings, your frequencies and everything, I do recommend you check back in 15 minutes or half an hour or an hour to just make sure that everything's running smoothly, just in case you still have to make some frequency adjustments. Because for example, now that that I've run these settings for half an hour, I am most likely going to turn board number 4 down again. As you can see, it's throwing out significantly more errors than any of the other boards. So yeah, just to be safe, make sure you check back in half an hour or an hour just to see how your miner is doing. All right, and that was my full L3 Antminer setup guide. I really hope you enjoyed it, and most importantly, I hope it was helpful. If you think I did a good job, please leave a like and subscribe. And if you have any questions, thoughts, comments, or concerns, please leave a comment under this video. I will do my best to reply as quickly as possible. Thanks for watching, guys.